Well, just wanted to hop on here really quick and let you all know that everyone struggles and we all have times where it's difficult. And if you're in that boat or have been in that boat, you can relate where there's just times that life hits all at once and it's difficult, regardless of who you are, to get through that moment or that season. And so for me, that happened yesterday. And I told a few individuals that asked, how's it going? I said, it's a very challenging day today. Some people say it's character building to be positive. And it was even hard to say that because at some level, I felt like I was losing the battle. And really, it was just one thing after another in different areas of my life. I was just really getting hit from all different directions. And the interesting piece is that I started off the day posting on Facebook and some other places, how can I pray for you? And I ended up getting really heavy response, probably the most response I've ever received on a post like that. And there was just a lot of needs, a lot of wants. There was a lot of asks. And so I really was doing that all day long. However, as the day proceeded and things got rougher and more difficult for me as things kept hitting me from different directions, it did become a little more difficult. And I realized I was the one that really needed the prayer. And so I did stay true to praying for individuals, and I would post on and let them know I was praying. And I'm not the type to, I try not to be the type to say I'm going to pray and not. So a lot of times in the moment, I would just lift the prayer up. And it's cool because I received some feedback already today that we had some prayers answered from yesterday. And the truth is, we always know God is working, and he's always, even if the prayer isn't answered the way we want it to be answered, it's still answered. And God's still protecting us and all of that. That being said, I just was really wrestling with things yesterday and even into last night, just really in an interesting space. And those of you that know me know that it's difficult to rock my boat most of the time. However, I was just really having a difficult time trying to stay positive and be productive. And so that being said, I think there is truth to just relaxing and resting. I was listening to a song today. It was called, the song's name is Psalm 4. And it said, I can rest because you're good. I can rest because you're faithful. I can rest because you're good to me. And I woke up to that song this morning. It was one of the first songs I listened to in worship. And a lot of times that's where I run when I need some refueling, right? I need my cup to be filled back up. I run to God. And that's what I want to do every single time. I'm also not perfect in it, but it is what I focus on and try to be at. That being said, I was trying to find other ways to just kind of fill up the cup. And what I came across was John C. Maxwell. He does this thing called Minute with Maxwell. It's a tongue twister. And in his Minute with Maxwell, a lot of times he does just a word. And he's been doing this for a long time. I remember probably a decade ago when he started this, I signed up, and I since then have somehow been unsubscribed from that list. But I've been reintroduced to his stuff again through some things I was watching the last couple of weeks, and I did subscribe. And so I've been watching a few of these, what he calls strength statements. And he actually started on March 31st. So I rewound today all the way back to March 31st. I got the whole list on YouTube, and I just watched every single one of them. And I just taking notes and trying to just absorb, because really what he was trying to do is instill these strength statements during this time of COVID, where everyone was in stay-at-home order, and we just were trying to find strength. He was trying to bring that to everybody, and I feel he did a great job. But today, I just watched all of them at once, and it brought a lot to me. So I'm just going to run through some notes and some thoughts real quick here as fast as I can, and then I have a really powerful story I'm going to wrap up with. That's one of my favorites. I used to tell it every week when I was doing training at Vector Marketing. We do some weekly trainings, and I used to tell this story every single at the end of every single training. And it was such a powerful story. And I haven't told it here for been about a year and a half. And I almost kind of forgot some of the details. So I was rerunning it, and I'm like, man, that is so good. And it really relate to a lot of what John is talking about here as well. So I'm just going to run through real quick some of these statements. And I hope that they resonate with you. I know a lot of these did for me, and they're like really good statements to just write down and reiterate and memorize and just pull out when you need them. And so I'm going to run through them here. So the first segment, he says, just because you're struggling doesn't mean you're failing. He said he had a great friend that always says this: I'm not down. I'm either up or I'm getting up. I can be changed by what happens to me, but I refuse to reduce to it. Are you going to get better or bitter? I can't promise life will be easy, but I can promise it will be worthwhile. Man, I love that one. Resilience is very different than being numb. So a few notes on that one. When things hit, when things get tough, those are the two paths we really can take. We can be resilient and push through, or we can become numb, right? And just sit back and really try to detach and not feel anything, and not in a way that's healthy necessarily, right? There's a way to detach healthy in a healthy way, but there's also a way to not be engaged, not be present, not be doing, not being. He said next, every opportunity is surrounded by problems, saying that all our greatest opportunities have problems around them. And the problem most people have is that they see those problems and run. They see those problems and don't dig deep enough, don't try to solve the problems to get to the actual real opportunity. So the truth is, all our greatest opportunities have problems around them. And I was reminded of, I'm trying to do some things with transitional living right now to help out a lot of different types of individuals in different positions that really need support from a community of support. And we were looking at a space to use, and one of the individuals that was touring with us kept coming out with all the problems. Now, it is healthy because those need to be addressed. However, if we just looked at the problems and didn't try to solve them, and we just really focused on those, then we would never get to the real opportunity, which is really helping the individuals that need the help. We'd give up on that. And then we go to the next space and ask the same, there'd be some problems there. There'd always be problems. Every space we look at, there's going to be issues. That's just the bottom line. If we don't try to solve them or work through them, then we're just going to keep bouncing around and try to find another opportunity when things are passing us by, when people need the help and support. So just some food for thought. Like, problems, that's a good sign. Get through them and you'll see the opportunity. J.K. Rowling, I don't know how you say the last name. I should know because she's like the most prolific writer ever. But she's famous for saying, rock bottom became the successful foundation for me to rebuild my life. And the key word, rebuild. That means that she had a life that wasn't exciting, wasn't producing necessarily the fruit she wanted, and she hit rock bottom. So her life that she had before came to a rock bottom, and that's where she rebuilt. And that was a successful foundation for her. So if you're feeling like you're there, awesome. You can be the next JK, however you say her last name. All right. Experience gives you the test first, then come the lessons. Experience gives you the test first, then come the lessons. So be remembering that next time you go through a difficult experience. You may have to fight a battle more than once to win it. Oh man, so good. And it's worth fighting the battle. There's so many battles that are worth fighting more than once. So don't give up. You don't try to create the future. If you don't try to create the future you want, you have to endure the life you get. Worry doesn't empty tomorrow of its sorrow. It empties today of its strength. When everything seems to be going against you, remember, an airplane takes off against the wind, not with it. In the middle of difficulty, opportunity lies. All medicine is a result of sickness, hurting, and death. So without those things, we wouldn't have had a cause to come up with some way to relieve those things. Perspective can be an asset or a liability. Hope will always outlast difficulty. Hope is infinite. Difficulty is finite. Your life doesn't get better by chance. It gets better by change. And this is by choices. Growth always means there is change in our life. You can't grow without change. And change is what some of us fear. The best way out is through. Most people, when they come against something that they want to get out of, they want to escape it. They want to turn around and not push through. And he says to focus on finishing. The best way to overcome is to put your head down and keep moving forward. And I'll add God to that. Lean on God. Let God pull you through. Let God lift you up. You don't have to carry the burden alone. And one of the things he says throughout the entire thing, he said this probably out of 32 on 8 or 9 of the episodes, So, or the whatever you want to call it, Minute with Maxwell's. So I feel like this was just something that he really has at his core. He said, how you view things is how you do things. He said, perspective is everything. And I want to give you a real quick story on perspective to wrap this thing up. Because for me, the perspective I had yesterday wasn't necessarily the best. See, there's a lot of things that I learned from yesterday, it being a very difficult day for me in the day by itself. And there were some revelations that came about that actually stemmed all the way back to my childhood, where I realized some of the codependency issues I have these days really stem from how I was brought up. And I realized that I actually have always had someone by my side. I grew up in a very comfortable home with very supportive parents, not perfect, but very supportive. And I knew they were there for me. Same to having a friend most of my life that was always there by my side. I grew up with a nephew that was a little younger than me, and we were always together. We always did things together. Very rarely did I do things on my own as a child. We always were participating in functions and athletics and fun together. And then I graduated high school and got married a week after I graduated. So I had a wife right out of high school. So I had someone there. And then as I went about after divorce, I ended up living in different environments with people. I had roommates almost all the time. And even to this day, still the case. And it's like, that's always been the case. Now, I'm not to say that's a bad thing, but there's a reason why I have this. I want to do things with other people. And yesterday, having some difficulties that I was having, the challenges and struggles, they helped expose that and helped like literally line it all up. It all just came to me all at once. And I realized I need to work on that. And I am working on it. And so now that I'm aware, the next step is transformation. And that's the difficult part. And most people don't want that. And really, I want it because I want a better life for myself. And I want to have a better impact around with those around me. And I got to deal with it. And so I'm seeking help. I can't do it on my own. I'm getting some counsel. I'm praying on it. I'm reading books. So I'm working through it. And so I just encourage you to do the same. And the truth is, the perspective is what needs to change. Now, that wasn't the story I was going to tell you. Matter of fact, I wasn't planning on saying any of that at all. But here's the story I want to say, and it's really about perspective. So there's two brothers. They're actually identical twins. And they grow up in a house that's a little bit rough. And they have a father that ends up doing his best, but he ends up getting caught up in some situations where he's living a little bit of the street life and ends up getting caught in a situation where he takes somebody else's life. And it was premeditated. Dad gets charged with first-degree murder, and they end up giving him the death sentence. So the kids remember the experience. It was really devastating when Dad got arrested. They came in, and when the SWAT team comes in, or the FBI, or whoever it was, they're not very gentle with anybody. So the kids get thrown around, mom gets thrown down, dad gets thrown down, they arrest dad, and they never get to see dad outside of the prison walls the rest of their life. Now, both these brothers grow up to be adults, and one brother ends up actually following his dad's exact path, ends up going out, getting involved in street violence, takes somebody's life, first-degree murder, gets locked up, gets the death sentence. The other brother ends up growing up to be a very successful individual. He runs a business, he's making lots of money, has the perfect family with the white picket fence, just living the dream. And so really two totally different outcomes. And what's interesting is they went and interviewed both these individuals. And the answer that they got when they asked a question that was the same to both was really interesting, in the fact that it was the same answer, but it was the perspective on that answer that changed the game. And so I'm going to give that to you here. The question they asked is, how did you get where you're at today? What do you give the credit, or what do you blame, right? Essentially in one case. But the question was, how did you get to where you're at today? What made you who you are? And they asked the individual that was locked up, and he said, man, with a father like mine, how could I not? My dad was taken away from me young. He was a first-degree murderer, right? I was 8 or 9 years old, and I lived without a father. My mom was doing the best that she could, but we were left to raise ourselves, my brother and myself. And he didn't have a lot of role models come into his life. He's like, this is the life that I was handed. Look, it's in my genetics. Look, my dad's a first-degree murderer. They asked the brother that was really successful, hey, how'd you get where you're at today? And he said, with a father like mine, How could I not? See, the second brother looked at that experience, and while the pain was still the same, right? The struggle was still the same. The challenge was still the same for him as it was for his brother that ended up getting locked up. The truth is, he used that as fuel to the fire. He used that as motivation. He used that as a way to propel himself forward. Instead of looking at it and blaming it and complaining and use it as an excuse, he said, man, this is the life that I don't want for my kids. He said, I saw my mom and how much she had to hustle and how hard she had to work to get us out, right? To try to get us away from this kind of life. He's like, I didn't want that for my wife. And I wanted to pay tribute to my mother for doing such a thing. So was it easy? No, it was difficult. But man, whenever I had to make a decision, it was easy to make the decision to go this way. I ran as hard and as fast as I could this direction so that I end up living the life that my dad showed me could happen if I made the wrong choices or if I took this path. And so while it was difficult and it was challenging, the decision was somewhat easy because there was so much pain there. See, if we could use the pain in our lives, if we can use the discomfort in our lives, we can use the disappointments in our life, if we can use all those things as fuel to the fire to propel us forward, and we can learn from those things to get more wisdom, to be wiser, to have an experience that now we can tell a story to someone else that maybe we can eliminate or alleviate some pain or stop them sooner. See, some of the most painful things in my life, I've realized God's put them in my life so that I can help others get through the same thing, but a lot quicker, or not make the dumb decisions I made. See, a lot of times that's the case. Like, it's not about us. See, the truth is that individual, that brother that decided to change the course, see, it's going to impact his wife, it's going to impact his kids, and it's going to impact generations to come. And the truth is now he can go back to that situation and talk to other young men that have fathers that aren't there or are there but not really there. And he can speak life and truth and love into their lives and inspire them, truly inspire them, because nothing is more powerful than another man's testimony and their story. It gives you hope when you see they've been where I'm at and now they're where I want to be. I can be there too. And the truth is there's lots of stories out there like his that he can now impact to help get them from where they're at to where they want to be. And he had to go through those challenges. He had to go through that struggle. He had to make those tough decisions. And the truth is the individuals that he's mentoring are going to have to as well. So I just encourage you, if you're in a season that's difficult, if you're in a season that's challenging, if you're in a day or a moment that's that way, hopefully some of these things that I just gave you, you can take notes on, go back, watch it again. Or maybe it's just this story here at the end and you just got to switch up your perspective. You just got to flip it and say, hey, how can all these painful things in my past be fuel to the fire? How can I turn them? How can I flip them? Because if you're that type of individual, how are you going to lose? How's life going to beat that person up? They can't, right? Because the negative turns into a positive. I'm not saying everything in life is positive, right? Like in the moment, it's not positive. Like things that were happening yesterday in the moment were not positive. Once again, the experience, right? Oh man, what was it? Experience gives you the test first. So like in the experience, that's the test. And it's not always positive. Like it feels negative. Things that were happening yesterday definitely felt negative. They didn't feel good. And I wasn't able to flip the script on them right away. But reflecting on it, looking back on it, man, a lot of lessons learned. I know not to try to fix one of those stinking tub faucets on my own. The handle, there's too much going on there. I'm going to hire a professional probably every time. Okay. I might attempt it for like 10 minutes. All right. I spent 3 hours on it trying to solve this problem. All right. Too prideful, trying to figure it out on my own. I just need to put my hands up and surrender because I could have been doing way more productive, fruitful things in those 3 hours than trying to fix a stinking handle. Now, I did learn something, though. I learned a lot of things about how it works and all the functions and mechanisms that are going on in there. That's something I probably never would have sought out had I not had the challenge. And now maybe I do figure it out moving forward and I don't have to pay someone and I do fix it a lot easier. Who knows? Maybe it was just a weird situation where it was really difficult. And maybe I need to learn a lesson. Maybe God was testing me to stay patient in those 3 hours, right? And just maybe it was to surrender earlier. Maybe I didn't surrender early enough. I don't know. I'm still working through some of that. And I just hope this encourages you, though, just to think about after the fact, right? After the negative hits, What are some lessons I can learn? How can I turn this into a positive moving forward? How can this be fuel to fire? That's what I got. Be the second brother. The choice is yours, right? The truth is, nothing changed. The circumstances were exactly the same. They both had the same father. They both had the same mother. They're identical twins. Essentially, DNA is pretty much similar. Same environment growing up. The outcomes totally, radically different. Why? Perspective. It's all about perspective, and you control your perspective. Encourage y'all to have the right one, and one that is positive and encouraging and propels you forward to get closer to the life that God has for you. God bless y'all. Love you. Be well.